9 people you should never help according to the Bible. There is a truth hidden inside the pages of Scripture that most people walk right past. Not because it is buried in obscure language. Not because it requires decades of theological study to uncover. Not because the words are unclear. But because the truth is uncomfortable. And uncomfortable truths have a way of being overlooked, especially when they challenge something we were taught was sacred. You have been shaped by a message since the very beginning of your life. It came from your family, from the pulpit, from every well-meaning voice that surrounded your growing years. And that message was clear, consistent, and deeply sincere. Help everyone. Give endlessly. Never turn your back on someone in need. Pour yourself out without reservation. Sacrifice your comfort, your time, your peace, your very strength, if that is what another person requires of you. And along the way, certain verses became almost like a reflex. You heard them so often they became embedded in how you move through the world. Love your enemies. Turn the other cheek. Go the extra mile. And those words are real. They are not exaggerations. They are not metaphors meant to be softened. They were spoken by Jesus Christ himself, and they carry the full weight of divine truth. But here is what you were never taught alongside them. Those words were never designed to make you a vessel with no bottom. They were never intended to be a license for others to drain you empty. They were never written to keep you locked inside a relationship, a friendship, a family dynamic, or a commitment that was slowly consuming you from the inside out. And here is the question that changes everything. The question that most people are afraid to ask, because asking it feels selfish, feels faithless, even feels unkind. What if helping the wrong people is not kindness at all? What if there are situations, specific, identifiable, biblical situations, where pouring yourself into someone else is not an act of love, but an act of self-destruction dressed in the language of virtue? What if the very thing you believed was your greatest spiritual strength has quietly been functioning as the thing that is breaking you? This is not a comfortable question, but it is a necessary one. And Scripture, in its remarkable precision and depth, has already answered it. Proverbs chapter 9, verse 8 says something most people read in a few seconds and move past without pausing. It says, "Do not rebuke mockers, or they will hate you. Rebuke the wise, and they will love you." Sit with that for a moment. Let it breathe. That one verse, tucked inside one of the most ancient books of wisdom ever written, reveals something profound about the nature of people. Not everyone responds to your help the same way. Not everyone who receives your kindness will be softened by it. Some people grow when you invest in them. Some resist, and some turn against you. The Bible is not telling you to build walls around your heart. It is not instructing you to become suspicious, cold, or withholding toward everyone. It is doing something far more valuable than that. It is teaching you to be wise. Wise about who receives your time. Wise about who you allow into the inner rooms of your life. Wise about where you pour your energy, because energy, like water poured on stone, either carves a path forward or evaporates without leaving a trace. Even Jesus, perfect love, clothed in human form, did not help every person in every way they asked. He healed the sick by the thousands. He restored sight to those born in darkness. He fed crowds so vast that the disciples could not imagine how it was possible. He touched lepers when no one else would even approach them. He spoke to women, to tax collectors, to soldiers, to the despised and the forgotten. But he also walked away. He refused to perform signs for those who only wanted spectacle. He stood in total silence before Herod, a man who had been given opportunity after opportunity and had chosen, repeatedly, to harden his heart. He watched rich young rulers turn and walk away unchanged, and he did not run after them. He did not adjust his message to be more palatable. He did not negotiate his truth to keep them close. Why? Because Jesus understood something that most of us spend entire lifetimes learning the hard way. Not everyone who asks for help truly wants transformation. Some want control. Some want an audience for their suffering. Some want someone to carry their burdens indefinitely, so they never have to face the full weight of their own choices. Some want the presence of a rescuer because a rescuer can always be blamed when things do not improve. And if you are not vigilant, if you are not armed with wisdom as well as compassion, you will become that person for someone. The one who carries what they refuse to hold. The one who rebuilds what they deliberately break. The one who bleeds quietly, steadily, faithfully, while they move on without ever pausing to look back. Today, you are going to hear about 9 types of people that Scripture has identified with stunning, almost unsettling precision. 9 patterns, 9 warnings, written across thousands of years of divine wisdom, and as relevant in this moment as the day they were first recorded. This is not an invitation to become suspicious of everyone around you. It is an invitation to become wise. And if even one of these 9 resonates with something you are living right now, stay with that feeling. Because it may be the answer to why you feel exhausted when you should feel fulfilled. Why you feel frustrated when you have been doing everything right. Why you feel lost, even though every step you have taken has been a step towards someone else. Stay with me. Because what you are about to hear might be the most clarifying thing you encounter this year. The first kind of person, the manipulator. This is the most dangerous entry on this entire list. And the reason for that is not because manipulators are violent or obvious. It is because they are nearly impossible to detect in the early stages of any relationship with them. They do not arrive with threats. They do not force. They do not demand in ways that immediately alert your instincts. Instead, they influence. Slowly, quietly, precisely, over days and weeks and months. They study how you think. They learn what makes you feel valued. They identify the places in your heart where you most want to be seen, to be needed, to feel as though you matter in a way that is irreplaceable. And then they speak directly into those places. They say, "You are the only person who truly understands me." They say, "I would never go to anyone else with something this important. But you are different from everyone I have ever known." They look at you in a way that makes you feel chosen. And in that moment, without realizing it, you cross a threshold. Helping them no longer feels like something you were asked to do. It feels like your idea. It feels noble. It feels right. It feels, perhaps most dangerously of all, like love. But Proverbs chapter 12, verse 26 carries a quiet, urgent warning inside it. The righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. The word astray is worth pausing over. It does not describe a sudden fall into an obvious pit. It describes a gradual drift, a slow, almost invisible deviation from the direction you intended to walk. That is exactly how the manipulator works. They do not steal your strength. They redirect it toward their purposes, toward their comfort, toward a version of your time, your energy, your resources, your emotional capacity, all flowing in a direction that serves them, while you slowly believe you are exercising your own free will. And by the time you notice, you have already crossed lines you once promised yourself you would never approach. You have compromised things that once felt non-negotiable. You have given away pieces of yourself that you may struggle for years to recover. That is not love. That is captivity, wearing the face of connection. The clearest way to unmask a manipulator is not to observe how they treat you when things are going smoothly. It is to notice what happens the moment you say no. The moment you step back, even slightly. The moment you have a need of your own. A person who genuinely cares for you will honor your no. They may express disappointment, but they will honor it. A manipulator cannot. Because your no is a direct threat to the architecture they have carefully constructed around your yes. Proverbs is not making you cynical. It is being kind enough to show you the pattern before the cost becomes irreversible. The second kind of person, the ungrateful. In the beginning, they genuinely seem like someone in need. And perhaps, at the outset, they are. You reach toward them. You give your time, your attention, your practical help. You rearrange your schedule. You answer calls at inconvenient hours. You show up, again and again, with the generosity of someone who truly believes in the person they are giving to. And then something begins to shift, so gradually that you almost miss it. They stop saying thank you. Not all at once, but incrementally. The gratitude becomes less frequent, then occasional, then entirely absent. Your effort, which was once received with genuine appreciation, becomes simply expected. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 2 speaks of people in difficult seasons who are, among other things, lovers of themselves, ungrateful. Notice how those two descriptions are placed together. They are not separate traits. They belong to the same root. When a person is entirely focused on themselves, they are structurally unable to see the sacrifice of others. Your giving does not appear to them as sacrifice. It appears to them as provision that belongs to their world, something that simply exists because they need it to exist. And the more you give, the more the bar moves. Your kindness becomes their entitlement. Your consistency becomes their assumption. Your availability becomes their right. And one day, perhaps after months, perhaps after years, you pull back slightly. Not out of selfishness, not out of meanness, simply because you are human and you have reached a natural limit of what you can sustain. And they respond with offense, with confusion, with a sense of genuine grievance, as though you have taken something from them that was always rightfully theirs. That is the moment of painful clarity. They never valued you. They valued what you were capable of providing. Scripture does not ask you to stop being generous. It asks you to be generous wisely. There is a profound difference between someone walking through a difficult season, who will, with time and support, lift their head and see you clearly, and someone who has made receiving into a permanent way of life. The first person deserves every ounce of what you can give. For the second person, the most genuinely loving thing you can offer is to stop enabling a pattern that is stealing from them the very growth they need most. The third kind of person, the hot-tempered. You tell yourself you are strong enough. You reason that your calmness will be the counterbalance to their fire. You believe that patience and maturity can absorb what they release without being permanently affected. But Proverbs chapter 22, verse 24 and 25 delivers a warning so clear it feels almost like a hand on your shoulder. Do not make friends with a hot-tempered person, or you may learn their ways and get yourself ensnared. That word, ensnared, is not dramatic language. It is precise language. A snare is not visible until you are already caught in it. It does not announce itself. It does not give you time to reconsider. You simply take one more step in a direction that seems safe, and suddenly, you cannot move freely anymore. This is exactly how the anger of another person spreads into your own character. In the beginning, you manage it well. You stay calm. You de-escalate. You create space. But over time, something changes in the atmosphere of your inner life. You begin to understand their anger in a way that slowly begins to feel like agreement. You start defending their reactions to others. You find yourself repeating justifications that you once would have immediately rejected. And then one morning you notice that you are the one raising your voice. You are the one losing patience in situations that once would not have stirred you. You are justifying reactions in yourself that you once privately judged in someone else. And when you look in the mirror, you see something that unsettles you. Because the person looking back is not who you intended to become. The wisdom writers of Proverbs were not warning you about anger because angry people are beyond hope. They were warning you because anger is contagious in the most quiet and invisible way imaginable. It transfers. It takes root. And by the time you feel it in yourself, it already feels natural. You cannot pour peace into someone who has chosen not to receive it. But they can, without either of you fully realizing it, pour their storm into you. That is not an exchange worth making. The fourth kind of person, the sluggard. This one is subtle precisely because the excuses sound so reasonable. The stories are always plausible. There is always a circumstance that explains why they cannot take the next step, why they are not yet ready, why this week is particularly difficult, why the timing is not quite right. Proverbs chapter 26, verse 15 captures the pattern with almost unsettling accuracy. A sluggard buries his hand in the dish. He is too lazy to bring it back to his mouth. Read that slowly. The food is there, within reach. The effort required is minimal. The reward is immediate and obvious. And yet, even that small motion, hand to mouth, is too great a demand on someone who has made avoidance into a lifestyle. Now make no mistake, this is not about someone who has fallen into a difficult season. Genuine hardship is real. People are sometimes overwhelmed by circumstances that were beyond their choosing. Depression is real. Grief is real. Seasons of genuine incapacity are real, and they deserve compassion without reservation. But the sluggard is something different. This is a person who has made not acting into a permanent orientation, who has discovered, often over many years, that if they wait long enough, someone else will step in. And that someone, more often than not, is you. You step in, you solve the problem, you remove the obstacle, you carry what they declined to carry. And in that moment of rescue, something important is quietly interrupted. Because it was precisely that weight, the natural pressure of consequence, that had the power to finally produce movement. And the moment you absorb it for them, that pressure evaporates. You are not saving them. You are insulating them from the only language that might actually reach them. Sometimes the most profound expression of genuine love is not to reach in and lift someone out. Sometimes it is to trust that the ground beneath them becoming uncomfortable enough is exactly what that person needs to finally choose to rise. The fifth kind of person, the gossip. They seem, at first, like an extraordinary gift. A person who truly listens. A warm, attentive presence who seems to receive whatever you share with genuine understanding and care. You open up in a way you rarely allow yourself to with others. You share the things that do not have easy words, the fears that live beneath the surface, the wounds that have not entirely healed. They receive it beautifully. They nod. They reflect. They say exactly what someone in pain most needs to hear. And then, without ceremony, without announcement, it spreads. Proverbs chapter 20. Verse 19 speaks with the directness of someone who has watched this happen too many times. A gossip betrays a confidence, so avoid anyone who talks too much. The gossip does not prize connection. They prize information. Your vulnerability becomes content. Your pain becomes a story that is interesting to share. The most private corner of your inner life becomes, in their hands, something that moves around in conversations you were never meant to be part of. And Proverbs implies a test that is both simple and entirely reliable. If a person freely shares the private details of others with you, they share yours with others. There is no version of the gossip who makes a single exception. There is no vault inside them where your secrets are stored differently from everyone else's. It is not a question of if they will speak about you. It is only a question of when. The book of Proverbs returns to this theme again and again because the writers understood something about the human soul, that words, once released, cannot be recalled. That trust, once broken, is among the most difficult things in human relationship to fully rebuild. That the person who smiles warmly as they receive your confidence and then carries it elsewhere has committed an act of betrayal as real as any more obvious one. Not every person who asks to hold something precious about you has earned the right to do so. Let wisdom determine who receives what is sacred. The sixth kind of person, the conceited. They come to you with what appears to be humility. They say they want your guidance. They frame themselves as someone who genuinely values your perspective and experience. And for a brief moment, the conversation feels exactly like what they described. But something is off almost immediately. Because no matter what you say, they already have their answer. They have not arrived with an open hand. They have arrived with a verdict already written, and what they are actually looking for is someone to sign it. Romans chapter 12. Verse 16 is direct. Do not be conceited. And Proverbs chapter 26, verse 12 adds a statement that stops most people mid-breath. Do you see a person wise in their own eyes? There is more hope for a fool than for them. More hope for a fool. That is a striking judgment. But read it carefully. A fool, at minimum, has the raw material of humility to work with. A fool may not know the right path, but they at least know they are lost. The conceited person has sealed themselves inside their own certainty. They have decided, quietly, thoroughly, that they already possess the wisdom they need. The very thing they came to you asking for is the thing they are incapable of receiving. You cannot reach someone who believes there is nothing to reach. And this is where the cost to you becomes specific. When things go wrong, and they always do, because wisdom that is never truly absorbed always leads somewhere painful eventually. The conceited person will not look inward. They will look back at your conversation, and through a process of revision that serves only themselves, they will find a way to locate the fault outside themselves. In you, in how you explain things, in what you failed to say clearly enough. And you will carry that. You will question your own guidance. You will wonder what you should have done differently. The answer, when you can finally see it clearly, is this: nothing. The problem was never your explanation. The problem was that they came with a closed hand and left with it still closed, and called the entire exchange your fault. The seventh kind of person, the wicked schemer. This person stands apart from the others on this list because they are not lazy, not careless, not impulsive. In fact, they are often remarkably impressive. They speak with vision. They use language about legacy, about purpose, about building something that genuinely matters. They are compelling in the way that certain people are compelling, the kind of presence that makes rooms pay attention. They can make an idea sound not just exciting, but inevitable. But Proverbs chapter 24, verse 1 and 2 reaches beneath the surface of that impressiveness. Do not envy the wicked, for their hearts plot violence, and their lips talk about making trouble. They will invite you into their plans. They will use the language of partnership. We are building this together. I see your role in this clearly. This is as much for you as it is for me. And for a period, perhaps a significant period, it genuinely feels that way. But you are not a partner. You are a piece. Every structure they build is designed, at its foundation, to serve them. Your contribution is real. Your effort genuinely matters to their outcome. You may even be the thing, the skill, the relationship, the resource that makes their vision viable. But none of that will be reflected in what you receive. And when the structure begins to fracture, and it always does, because things built on schemes are not built on solid ground, they will disappear cleanly, without ceremony, and you will remain standing in the consequences of decisions you were never fully informed about and agreements you never knowingly made. Psalm 1 opens the entire book of Psalms with a fundamental contrast. The person who walks in wisdom is distinct from the one who sits in the company of the wicked. The image is deliberate. The company you stand beside determines the ground you are standing on. Do not let another person's cleverness become the foundation you build your trust upon. The eighth kind of person, the fool who repeats mistakes. Let us be clear about something first, because this point demands honesty. Every person in the narrative of Scripture stumbled. Every single one. The great figures of faith, Moses, David, Peter, Paul, all of them carried visible, documented failures. The entire arc of the biblical story is built precisely on the truth that humans fall, and that grace is the response to falling. This is not about that. This is about something different, something that Proverbs chapter 26, verse 11 describes without softening. As a dog returns to its vomit, so fools repeat their folly. This is about a person who encounters consequence, receives help, expresses genuine gratitude, makes sincere promises, and then, with a pattern so consistent you could nearly predict it, returns to exactly the same place. Same decision, same crisis, same request, same tears, same promises. And every time you step in, you are doing something that feels, from the inside, exactly like love. And your motivation is love. There is no reason to question that. But the effect of that love, in this specific dynamic, is not what you intend. Because the consequence you remove every time you arrive with your rescue, that discomfort, that pressure, that weight of having to live with a choice, is not punishment. It is information. It is the language that reaches the heart when words have exhausted themselves. It is the thing that has the potential, if allowed to do its work, to finally produce something real. And when you absorb that consequence on their behalf, you are not silencing their pain. You are silencing the one voice that still had the power to break through. There are moments when the most faithful thing you can do for someone you love deeply is to remain present but step back, to refuse to carry what is theirs to carry, not because you have abandoned hope, but because you believe in them enough to trust that they can, if given no other option, finally find within themselves what all your rescuing has never been able to produce for them. The ninth kind of person, the one who hates correction. We have arrived at the final one, and in a way that is not accidental. It is the one that ties everything else together. Because if you look back across the 8 that came before, you will notice a thread running through all of them. In every single case, the pattern exists because the person resists truth. The manipulator distorts it to serve their purposes. The ungrateful is too focused inward to receive it. The hot-tempered person explodes when it approaches. The sluggard deflects it with endless excuses. The gossip trades it away as currency. The conceited person buries it beneath their own certainty. The schemer weaponizes it against others. The repeating fool absorbs it momentarily and then discards it. And now, the one who simply hates correction. Proverbs chapter 15, verse 12 speaks without decoration. Mockers resent correction, so they avoid the wise. This person does not want truth. not in any form, not packaged gently, not offered with compassion, not delivered carefully or kindly or with every possible consideration for their feelings. They want comfort. They want the security of remaining unchanged. They want to be confirmed in who they already are, not challenged toward who they could become. And when you speak honestly, when you care enough to say the difficult thing, when you offer the real answer they technically asked for, they do not respond with discomfort that leads to growth. They respond with contempt, not because you were wrong, but because you were right. There is a particular pain to this moment that is difficult to describe unless you have lived it. You spoke because you cared. You chose the difficult honesty over the comfortable agreement because you believed in their potential. You said the hard thing because you remembered someone who once said the hard thing to you, and it changed the direction of your life. But they cannot receive it. Not in this moment. Perhaps not for a very long time. Perhaps, in some cases, not ever. And Scripture, in its great compassion and its unflinching realism about the nature of human beings, teaches you exactly what to do with that moment. You step back, not out of indifference, not because you have stopped caring, not because you have decided they are beyond hope, but because you trust that God is not limited to your presence in someone's life. Because you understand that the same Spirit who opened your eyes is fully capable of opening theirs. Because you have finally understood, perhaps at great cost, that your role was never to save anyone. That responsibility belongs to someone far greater than any of us. So here's where we land. After everything you have just heard, after all 9 of these patterns, all 9 of these warnings drawn from the oldest and most tested wisdom literature in human history, here is the truth that holds them all together. These 9 people are not strangers in a story. They are not abstract categories. Some of them are in your family. Some of them are inside your closest circle. Some of them may be people you have been faithfully, sincerely, exhaustedly pouring yourself into for years without seeing the transformation you were hoping for, without understanding why your giving has not produced what giving is supposed to produce. And perhaps, as you have been listening, something inside you has been quietly recognizing a face, a name, a relationship, a pattern that has been present in your life for longer than it should have been. Let that recognition be gentle with you. Let it bring clarity rather than condemnation. Let it open something rather than close you. Because the entire point of everything you have heard today is not to make you suspicious of the people around you. It is not to encourage you to retreat from relationship or harden the places in you that are capable of love. The point is this: love, real love, the kind described across the whole sweep of Scripture from Proverbs to the Psalms to the Epistles to the Sermon on the Mount. Real love is not the same thing as endless accommodation. Real love is not the same thing as giving without discernment. Real love is not the willingness to be consumed by whoever asks for the fire that burns inside you. Real love has wisdom in it. Real love knows when to give and when to hold back, when to speak and when to remain silent, when to reach down and when to remain present from a distance, when to carry and when to trust that the weight must remain where it belongs. Real love protects you as well as the other person, because you cannot pour from a vessel that has been emptied. You cannot speak life into others when the life in you has been slowly drained away. You cannot be a channel of grace when the channel itself has been broken by years of giving to people who had no interest in growing. Jesus did not help every person in every way they asked, and he was perfect love in human form. He was the very definition and source of compassion. If he could discern when to act and when to walk away, when to heal and when to allow consequence, when to pursue and when to let go, then wisdom invites you to learn the same. The Apostle Paul wrote to the Galatians in chapter 6, verse 2, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ." And then, just a few verses later, in verse 5, "For each one should carry their own load." Both of those are true. Both of those are necessary. And the wisdom, the holy, hard-won, scripture-soaked wisdom, is in knowing which moment calls for which response. That is not selfishness. That is not cruelty. That is not a failure of faith. That is discernment. And discernment is one of the most precious gifts that a life with God produces in a person who is willing to grow. You are allowed to protect your peace without surrendering your compassion. You are allowed to love someone deeply without being consumed by what they bring. You are allowed to step back from a relationship without stepping away from your faith. You are allowed to say no without that no being a sin. And if someone has made you feel guilty for any of those things, if someone has used the language of Scripture to keep you giving, to keep you accessible, to keep you available in ways that were slowly hollowing you out, go back to the beginning. Go back to Proverbs chapter 9, verse 8. Rebuke the wise, and they will love you. That is the standard. Not everyone will receive your wisdom. Not everyone will love you for your truth. Not everyone will respond to your care with growth. But the right people will. The people who are genuinely open, genuinely willing, genuinely hungry for transformation. They will receive what you offer. They will grow from it. They will look back years from now and name you as someone who mattered in their becoming. And those are the people worth staying for. Protect your energy for them. Give your best to them. Pour into the soil that will bear fruit. That is not the abandonment of love. That is love, finally, wisely, fully alive. Thank you for following this story. Let us know in the comments below. If this story has moved you and you'd like to stand with us in bringing more voices of truth and hope to light, please consider supporting our work. Even the smallest gift helps us continue creating and sharing these powerful stories. You can find the donate link in the description. And of course, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next chapter we're preparing for you.